Okay, today's guest is as English as Coleman's mustard. He's West Midlands as Bourneville. He's made over 600 professional appearances at the highest level, by the way, repping Sheffield, Leeds United, Saints, Forest, among others, and of course played for his national team at a major championship. Welcome, Carlton Palmer. How are you, Carlton?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. Let's start with England, CP, because they've been in action. I'm looking at the stats and reports now. They're third favourites to lift the World Cup, behind Brazil and France, by the way. Do you fancy them? And secondly, are they rightly tipped above Spain and Argentina?
Well, you've got to fancy them. You've got to fancy them with the group of players that they've got. And given on current form in major championships, yes, they've got to be fancied for sure. Definitely got to be fancied. I mean, I thought they should have won the Euros.
Yeah.
I thought we definitely should have won the Euros. We've been very lucky, both in the Euros and the World Cup, the way the draw opened up for us. And we didn't capitalise on both of those opportunities. I think there were two great chances to lift a major tournament. I know Gareth is the second most successful English manager to date now, and I do believe he's brought some good things to the job. I really do. But I think any other manager at this stage wouldn't be getting a new contract going into the World Cup. Any other manager in his position would be under pressure.
Yep.
Given the tools that he's got to work with. You know, there's different kind of managers and different kinds of pressure. You know, people say to me, well, Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp are not under pressure. They're under pressure because they've got the tools to do their job. They have to deliver the Champions League or the Premier League. If they don't, they're under pressure. There's certain managers who don't have the tools to do their job. They face a different kind of pressure, saying keeping the side in the Premier League or whatever. But they haven't got the tools to do their job, so the job's a lot more difficult. Gareth Southgate has got a very, very talented group of players, and in my opinion, they've not been utilised in the right way. The Euros on home soil, the draw opened up. There were players in there that I don't believe should have been in there. I've never been a fan of Luke Shaw. I think he's a decent player. I don't think he's a Man United player, and I don't think he's the best English left back. And that's a problem for us. And I think I look at the Euros and I look at the final in particular. If you're going to take the chance of going to penalties, and you can say, and you have to rightly say, that England were penalties away from winning the Euros, but if you're going to take that chance, then there's two things for me, right? A, do you look at the bench and think, I've got players on that bench that could possibly win me the tournament? So surely when Gareth Southgate looks round, he's got players on that bench, in Rashford, in Grealish, that could maybe change the game, and didn't do that. Then you go to penalties, and I'm not an advocate for this, and I know that England planned that way and Gareth played that way. In all my years in football, how can you take players cold, even though they're regular penalty takers, and bring them on after 120 minutes, not invested in the game, to take penalties? It very rarely works. You know, you've seen Chelsea in the Cup change Mendy, who's played 120 minutes and was banging form, and bring a cold goalkeeper on. It doesn't work. So if you've got the players on the bench to dare to win it, then dare to win it. You've lost it anyhow, whether you go to penalties or not. When I look at the World Cup, I go back to the World Cup. And by the way, I'm saying all of this, I've been a manager, so I know it's not easy being a manager, but, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
I look at the game against Croatia. You're watching the game. I said to my missus, coming up to half time, if Gareth doesn't change this in midfield, we were getting swamped. Raheem Sterling, there was no space. We had to change the middle of the park. We then finished the World Cup, played Croatia in a friendly at Wembley, and beat them playing 4-5-1.
Yeah.
He had to change the system. You've got to be brave in tournaments, in league matches, to do that. I go back, I was saying on Talk Sport the other day, I remember watching, and I don't know if you remember the game, Pete, where Chelsea were playing Reading away and they were losing the game of football. And Jose Mourinho took the fullback on and put a striker on at fullback to go and win the game. And they ended up, I think they drew the game and then won the replay and went to the cup final. You've got to be brave as a manager, especially if you've got the tools to do so.
It's a massive array of tools. That's the thing, Carlton, and some of the things that I wanted to pick up on you. Let's start up at the beginning and look at the squad. As keepers go, he's definitely Marmite, but is Pickford your number one?
I think he is. I think he's the best of what we've got available. He's certainly not a David Seaman. And we go through eras like this. I mean, we've gone through eras where we've had great goalkeepers and great back fours. Right now, we haven't got a great back four, in my opinion. But we're blessed with great midfield players and good front players. You go through that. But Pickford, I would think, is better or the best of the bunch that we've got. So yes, he would be the number one choice.
You've always said as well that every England team needs a CP, needs a Carlton Palmer. Remember that quote, and rightly so, by the way. Is Calvin Phillips the Carlton in that side?
No, I think it's Declan. I think it's Declan. Declan's a throwback. He's a throwback and I have to be honest with this. I hold my hand up with it. I when I first saw Declan and everybody was raving about him, I wasn't convinced about him. I really wasn't. And then I watched, I think it was last season, West Ham play against Everton at Goodison Park. Yeah. And my goodness, I thought he changed my opinion just in that one game. And then I've watched him more closely, and he's a throwback. He can get the ball off the back four. He can play long passes. He can drive with the football. He can run with the football. He can get back and get tackles in. He can get forward. He can move the ball well. You know, I mean, I think at the age of 23, he's an outstanding footballer and possibly one of the best midfield players in the world right now.
And you said as well, you know, it goes in swings and roundabouts, but currently England have a great crop in midfield and up front. Up front, he's got so many options. Obviously, you're building around Harry Kane, but there's not that settled, you know, I don't think he knows himself who's going to partner Harry, does he? Harry Kane.
Well, for me, Raheem Sterling's got to be in the side.
Okay.
That's not even an argument. I don't see why he doesn't play for Man City. I really don't. Well, I've been told that. I mean, Raheem's only 27. People forget that. Yeah. When you look at his stats for Man City, they're quite frightening. He had a little bit of a lull last season. I believe that was due to a fallout with Pep. I believe this is what I've been told. He had a meeting with Pep, and if you question Pep, you've got a problem. But they struggled, and every time they've struggled, they brought Raheem on as their go-to and got out of it. Even on the last day of the season to win the league title, they were struggling. They brought Raheem on straight away. He changed the game. So Raheem, it's nothing personal. He's played well for England, and I think he should be a starter for Man City. I don't get that. You know, I know they brought Grealish, but Grealish is not for me a Raheem Sterling. I mean, this is a massive season coming up for Jack Grealish for Man City, because he's either got to adapt to the way that they play, or I don't see him getting a lot of game time. He's got to understand, you know, I know at Aston Villa, he was their talisman. He picked the ball up. They relied a lot on Jack. Jack was almost given the freedom of Villa Park to do what he did, but he's not. It's not Jack Grealish's show at Man City. It's Jack Grealish is part of a team, so he's got to understand when to release the ball, when to dribble with the ball. If you look at Man City, they move the ball quickly around the football pitch. You know, so he's got to understand that, and that's why he's not playing regularly for England. You know, because where do you play him? You know, the one thing that Jack's got to get into his game is that you have to play when you haven't got the football. You can't just play when you've got the football. So for me, the front three takes care of itself on current form. Would be Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane, and Phil Foden. But we've seen the way that Son and Kane have played with Spurs.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that comes into Gareth Southgate's thinking. Does he go with an out-and-out striker like Calvin Phillips and allow Harry Kane to drop into that areas where he's shown he's got that ability to create and knock a long pass? But these are nice problems to have as an England manager. You've just got to make the right call.
Absolutely. Someone who's lived in a GCC, let's touch on the actual World Cup itself. It's raised eyebrows about the venue, but and so it's a two-part question for you, really, Carlton. As someone who's lived in a GCC, what's your thoughts on a Winter World Cup, first off, and what's your thoughts on the venue?
Well, listen, one thing's for sure, right? Let's not make any arguments about this. The World Cup's being held in Qatar simply because of money. Yep. That's as simple as what it is, and all the leagues have moved around to accommodate this. And this is just simply about money. And we can all come out and complain about what's going on, but Anthony Joshua is going to be having his rematch in Qatar. The golf's been going on. I mean, Lee Westwood's been vilified for saying that, hang on a minute, listen, why shouldn't I go and play there? Because all the tournaments have been held there, the Grand Prix has been held there and whatever. So, but make no mistake, this is being held there because of money. That's as simple as it is. We would all agree that on the basis of human rights, on the basis of other factors, the World Cup shouldn't be held there. But, they are trying to make changes. And so what do we do? Do we facilitate that to help them make changes, to highlight that? I don't know. I'm not a politician, but certainly the World Cup's been held there. Winter, as well as me. I've lived in Dubai for 5 years. I've holidayed there, been there. That in the World Cup's going to start on the 21st of November and finish on the 18th of December, right? Yeah. The humidity will still be around 30 degrees. The heat will still be around 29, 30. So the heat's still going to be a factor. Yeah. It's not going to be as warm as what it would be in the summer, but make no mistake, in November or December, it is still going to be a major factor in the tournament. There is no arguments about that. Having lived there, there is no arguments about that. And some people might argue that the humidity is as high. Okay, maybe the humidity might get up to 40 or 50 in the summer, but certainly going to be in the high 30s. Yeah, which is going to be, and
it's a factor, isn't it?
Oh, it's a major factor. And air-conditioned stadiums really doesn't matter. When we were trying to acclimatise for the World Cup that was going to be in America, we went to Washington and places like that and played in indoor in arenas that had air conditioning and really made no difference. At pitchside, it was like 90 degrees. So it is going to be a major factor for England. And even the other day, Gareth, when England got beat, Gareth said the major factor was the weather. Yep. So it's still going to be a major factor. You're talking about the players being fresher. I don't know how much fresher they're going to be because the top players again have had a long, hard season. Gareth said yesterday, when they got beat off Hungary, the players looked jaded, which they did. Liverpool was a game too far in the Champions League. Trent Alexander looks out on his feet at the moment. Sure. And you've got a 3 or 4 week turnaround before players are back reporting to their clubs. So the Winter World Cup, where we actually think it's going to be to our benefit, I'm not so sure how much it's going to be to our benefit because the players won't have a big turnaround. They've then got to play the Nations Cup now. We've got 3 or 4 games to play, which is the whole of June. Players are only going to get 3 or 4 weeks rest. They're going to be tired. And then when they break before the World Cup, they only break for a week before the World Cup.
Yeah, because before you know it, looking at it, it's all coming around to the transfer window's open in a couple of days. The fixtures are out in next week, and then before you know it, the Premier League show is back on the road, and then you've got the World Cup. So I don't see the rest period in there at all, really.
No, it's not. It's going to be very difficult for the top players, who have played, Liverpool and Man City players, who have played, up to 70 games this season. You've seen in the Champions League final, I just thought it was a game too far for Liverpool. And I said that before the game. I thought that, if Liverpool got ahead in the game, I think they would go on to win it. And in history, whoever scores the first goals in the Champions League normally goes on to win it. But I just thought second half, if Liverpool weren't ahead, that they would look tired. And that's what has happened. Liverpool are tired. And those players, Trent played the other day, looked tired. They need a break, and where's that break going to come?
Well, not for. I mean, like you say, August though, and 1 week for them to, and the other factor as well, as no one's really mentioned, if someone picks up an injury, will they be thinking that they'll be thinking about that major tournament as well at the start of the season? So there's so much to think about. Speaking of major tournaments, though, and your career, Carlton, and what a career you had, I wanted to ask, have you any footballing regrets, or do you think that you've possibly you lived the dream as it was?
Listen, I had a great career. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My only regret was going to Nottingham Forest from Southampton. That was more emotion, going with Ron Atkinson and whatever. That was a terrible time for me. I was having a great time down at Southampton. I was playing very, very well. Dave Jones had looked after me. I went because my family was still up north, and I just had a young child. But that was a period of time until Gordon Stratton came in for me to take me to Coventry. That was a period of time in football that I didn't really enjoy. But apart from that, you're always going to have things in your life that because a regret, really. I've got to be honest with you, and I have this argument with my missus, because I said to her, for me personally, a regret is doing something that you knowingly know is wrong. I've never knowingly done anything that I thought was wrong, right? Absolutely. So I don't really have any regrets in life. I wish I hadn't have done certain things, and we all wish we hadn't have done that. But to say to regret is to say, well, you knew it was wrong in the first place.
Can't mention the three lines in England without Gazza.
I like to talk about Gazza as the footballer. Do you know, people forget that he was one of the greatest. He was a fantastic footballer. Who knows what he would have gone on to achieve if he hadn't had that injury, if he had outside influences that were more positive towards him, right? But I like to talk about the games where I watched Gazza take them by the scruff of the neck. Scotland at Wembley, where the goal, chipping the ball over Colin Hendry's head, and Colin's a great mate of mine. I'm not sure he thanked me for reminding him about that, but Gazza is a very generous and kind person, and it's sad to see what's happened to him now, and that serves as a reminder to young players about who you surround yourself with. I mean, I have a saying in life that family and friends can only be called family and friends if they act like family and friends. If they don't, they might as well be strangers. And I'm like that with family and with friends, and it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people, because if you do and surround yourself with good people, when you go off the rails, you'll be brought back onto the rails by those people who care about you. Unfortunately for Gazza, he didn't have that around him, and that's why he's ended up in the position he has. But, let's not forget, that this guy was a tremendous, tremendous footballer. One of the best.
And lucky enough for me, Carlton, I got to see him in the early stages of his career when he was changing games, because he was in a poor Newcastle team. And that young kid that came on, and where I sat in the ground at that time, we were pitch level, so I could actually see Gazza play and see Gazza's feet. And to be able to say that I've seen him play over a season live at St James's Park was probably one of my greatest memories. So talk about the football. Okay.
Well, all great players, you see, this is the difference about a great player. When you look at Messi, when you look at Ronaldo, when you look at Gascoigne, it's very rare, when you see this in full flow. They actually run quicker with the ball than without the ball, and that is that's just an unbelievable talent, that you can actually say that when they pick up the ball, they run quicker with the ball than without the ball. But those type of players do. That's world class. That's genius.
That is, and Gaza was absolutely brilliant. Listen, today, I mean, in today's world, we were just talking about it before the interview. It's a changed world, and we talk about cancel culture. Probably Big Ron was probably the first to experience that. How did he differ though as a gaffer between you, Graham Taylor? Because there's two great names there that you played under.
Yeah, I mean, Graham Taylor was a functional manager. So I always thought that Graham would struggle at international level because he doesn't have the players long enough to do and implement the way that he wants to play. If he's with a group of players, as you saw with Watford, as you saw with Aston Villa, and he's around those group of players day in, day out, then he can influence the way he influenced them the way he wanted to. But when you're with the national team, you come together 3 or 4 days. You're lucky if you get a week's training before an international. Okay, you get a bit longer before a major tournament, but you're lucky if you get 3 or 4 days together, and that's difficult for a manager who's a functional manager. But Graham Taylor, nevertheless, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, when you take over, Graham Taylor took over from a very successful Bobby Robson side and era, and those players were coming to the end, and Graham took over at a very difficult time. Whoever took over at that time as manager was going to struggle, because there were lots of players who were coming to the end of their international careers, and not just your ordinary players. You're talking about your world-class players, who were coming to the end of their careers. Ron Atkinson.
You think he was unlucky then, Graham?
I think he was very unlucky. He was very unlucky at the time that he took over at England. It's a bit like David Moyes at the time he took over from Sir Alex Ferguson. It was always going to be a difficult ask, because, that United team that season, Sir Alex had drained and dragged every last ounce out of that team, and that team was finished then. And that's why David was given a 7-year contract, but it's not as easy as that. And you don't have the time at a big club from the supporters and whatever to do that. And then all of a sudden David Moyes was then signified as being a poor manager. Now people have realised now at West Ham that he's not a poor manager. It was just circumstances and timing. And that's what happens sometimes when you're a football manager. You can walk into a club like George Graham did with Arsenal and have the likes of the players he had in the reserves. Don't get me wrong, he signed good players. He signed Smudger, he signed Ian Wright, he signed Lee Dixon, he signed Winterburn, he signed Bold, but he had the likes of Rocastle and Ray Parlour and the likes in that reserves, Tony Adams, at that period of time. Who were now coming in Paul Merson coming into fruition now to come through and play in the first team. So Ron Atkinson was a different type of manager. Ron Atkinson was a great man manager. Ron Atkinson knew a player and knew how to build a team. He knew how to put a team together. Very, very different types of managers. Ron was he knew the game inside out. He's probably complete opposite to Gareth Southgate. He would always go to try and win a football game, do whatever he had to do within that 90 minutes. He wouldn't change. When we played Manchester United in 1991, they were going for the treble. We were in League One, right? The old League One. So, the Premier League was the first division. So we were in League One. We were running away with the league at that time. And we played Man United. We didn't change for Man United. We played the 4-4-2, exactly the same 4-4-2. We didn't change our system for Giggsy, for Mark Hughes, for Brian Robson. We played the same way, because he believes that you play to your strengths and you don't take away from your strengths to counteract somebody else's strengths, and not, what his philosophy was. Well, we have to play at our best to have any chance of winning the football game. And we played very, very well. Our goalkeeper played exceptional, and we ended up winning the game. And that's the difference in management.
Fascinating, great character as well, and a regular visitor to Dubai. Spent some time in his company. Great guy. You mentioned there David Moyes and Man United. The simple question is then, Carlton, in your view, what's wrong at Man United?
Well, what's wrong since Sir Alex Ferguson? I think that was the era of when Sir Alex Ferguson and the Arsene Wengers of that they ran the football club. So they were responsible for the overall scene of everything, recruitment of players, all of that was down to them. And if you've seen now the recruitment of the players, I don't, even now, I mean, I had this argument on Talk Sport the other day about Paul Pogba. You've brought a player in, you've let a player go on a free who's gone and won 4 Scudettos. People forget that he won 4 titles at Juventus. He's won the World Cup and he's won the European Championships. No, he hasn't had the most successful return to Manchester United. Whose fault's that? I believe it's Manchester United. You brought a player back.
Not using him right.
Yeah, exactly. You brought a player back. And yet you haven't got the setup right for this player to play. Now, everybody's criticised me for my opinion about Paul Pogba, but why is then Pep Guardiola, and this is not hearsay, this is fact, Pep Guardiola went to buy him, well, obviously to take him on a free. And why? Because if you put Pogba into Man City's current side, then you'll see what you need to see. So yeah, I can understand people, it's a lot of it comes down to the money now. Harry Maguire's getting criticised at Man United because they're looking at the 90 million they've spent on him. He's not a 90 million pound player, but that's not Harry Maguire's fault. Do you know what I mean? He's still not, for me, had a proper central defensive partner to play with at Man United, and the fullbacks have been poor. Wan-Bissaka's a good fullback in terms of defensively, but not good on the ball going forward. Luke Shaw's a poor defender. Lindelof, he's okay. He's not a top draw centre-off. Varane's past his best. It's the recruitment of players. McTominay does a good job in the midfield for Man United, but if you're going to win the league, is he good enough? Is Fred good enough? Ronaldo, you say Ronaldo's done well in a poor side. Yes, he has, but Ronaldo's a different kettle of fish. Ronaldo, your Alan Shearers, your people like that, they are, with the want of a better word, selfish so-and-sos. They will score goals in any side because that's what they do. And that doesn't bother me because that's what's on the tin and that's what they're supposed to do, right?
Absolutely.
But it's different. But it's different when you're a midfield player that needs a kind of setup to be able to play. So a midfield player like Pogba needs a solid back four, needs a solid midfield like he has with Kante. I said at the time when they brought him back, why not take Deschamps as manager of Manchester United? Because he has got the best out of Paul Pogba on a continual basis, consistent basis. You look at Juventus, the setup, three centre-backs, 5 in the midfield, nice and solid, and he's allowed the freedom of the football park. Within that, he's got to deliver, and he will deliver. He's a talented young boy, and it's not worked out for him this time coming back to United. But I don't think all the criticism should be put at his door. I really don't.
Does that show you, Carlton, how far United are behind City? Then, because if Pogba would go into City and walk into that team and do a great job, that means there's a massive rebuild for Man United in order to have a Pogba in that side.
Oh, there's a massive rebuild needed at Man United, a massive rebuild. If I'm looking at Man United now, but look at the players that have not performed. Rashford's not performed. Rashford's a terrific talent. Sancho's come over there, not performed. Why? Because they brought a man in there. I don't understand the Ranchek thing. I really don't understand it. He's brought a man in there who wants to play a certain way, who hasn't got the players to play that. I believe Man United could have had a better season this season, right? And could have finished in the Champions League with the players they got, but they have to play a different way. They have to be more solid and play a counter-attacking. You haven't got the players to play like Liverpool or Man City. You just haven't got the players to do that, the players who've got to get around the football pitch. Look at what Conte's done at Chelsea, at Spurs, sorry. He's gone in there. He's played a system that suits the players. He hasn't tried to play something that the players can't play or the players that he hasn't got. What he's done, he's accommodated he wants to play a certain way. He's always played very attacking in Italy, 3-4-3, as it were. And he will get to that next year. I am for sure he'll get to that next year. But he has to get his players in who can play that way. He hasn't had those players. So he went in there, quickly saw what was needed to be done, and did what he did with the players he had and finished in the Champions League. Ranchek's gone in there. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Now, I'm not being funny with you. I'm not saying Harry Maguire is the best of the best, but he's not as bad as what's been portrayed with him playing this season. Nor is, De Gea's had a fantastic season and had a resurgence. But, a lot of the players in that side, Rashford's been poor, and he's not a poor player. He's been, lack of confidence and whatever, which has happened. It's a disjointed dressing room. You can see that. You've seen that with players leaving, with Martial leaving. He came out and said, that basically called Ranchek a liar. Lingard called Ranchek a liar, basically saying, when he said have some time off, he never requested any time off. He said it was Ranchek who said he should have some time off. So putting that interim manager in the football club has taken the club backwards. So when you're looking at it, as I said, there has to be a rebuild, which they've already started with Mata going and whatever. There's players that need to be taken out. Phil Jones has been there for 6 seasons and played 4 games. Needs to be gone. Pay him up and get him out. You've got to now look at the players now who can take the club forward, because it's still a massive football club. United is still one of the best clubs in the world. I don't think it will take a huge amount to get them to be able to challenge for the top 4 next season, but they're a million miles behind Man City and Liverpool now.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? That even though as poor as they are in their own fans' eyes, and I've spoken to a lot of Man United fans who basically have said the same as you. He's not good enough. That's not good enough. Blah 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 blah. But they were nearly in the Champions League, weren't they? So as you say, with a couple of additions and possibly the right coaching, who knows? I wanted to touch on this finally with you, because although it's my club, there's a lot of talk and a lot of excitement, quite rightly so. It's been a marvellous finish to the season for Newcastle United. Can they finish in a European spot next season, Carlton?
Well, of course they can. Of course they can. I mean, they're the richest club in the country now, so of course they can. But it's about the recruitment. It's about getting it right. You would expect that Chelsea are going to. We know Arsenal are going to go again. Yeah. We know, and I think Arsenal have got a terrific young team. And when people are calling Arteta, and I know he's been there 3 years, that was a massive rebuild job. That was a massive rebuild job, and it takes time, and Arteta needs to be given time with that team, because I think eventually, with a few more additions, they're going to do very, very well. So when you look at saying, can Newcastle finish in the top 4, you would expect, say, your top 2 is going to be Man City and Liverpool again, right? You would expect that. You expect Spurs now, with Conte being given a war chest from the chairman. You would expect Spurs to be there. Then you've got Chelsea, new owners coming in saying they're going to give him 200 million to buy, right? So you've got Chelsea, right? Then you've got Man United. Whatever happens, you can't discount Man United. People forget that it was only 3 seasons ago, or was it 3 seasons when Man United finished second under Solskjaer? Yeah. So I know they were a million miles behind Liverpool, who eventually won the league, but they did finish second not so long ago. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've got Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, Man United. Then you've got Arsenal, right? So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Yeah. So then you've got your little crop there, which you've always got to put in there. You've got to put your Leicesters, your West Hams, right? West Ham. I think it looks like Declan's going to go. Whether he goes in this summer, because they've got 2 years with a 1-year option left on his contract, but maybe they decide to let him go this summer if he's not going to sign. I don't know. Maybe they might look and say, well, because if I was Man United now, if I was Man City now at 140 million for 22-year-old Declan Rice, I'd take him all day long. I'd take him all day long, because what happens if you take Declan, see now, because Man City, and it wouldn't surprise me if they did it, Man City, they were looking to take Harry Kane at 140 million, right? Yeah. But Harry Kane had no resale value for them because he's 31 or 32. They've got Ireland in on with his release clause at 63 million, right? So if you take Declan Rice at 140 million, you've got two players in for 200 million, both of them under the age of 23. You've got the next 5 years.
Brilliant.
The next 5 years. So that wouldn't surprise me if Man City try and do that deal this summer. So then you've got Newcastle trying to break into that, right? So it's not impossible, because once you've got the money, I think now Newcastle becomes a different proposition to players, because before last season, and I said the same, and I made it very clear, anybody who went to Newcastle at that point was going for the money. That is for sure, because nobody could have foreseen the turnaround that Newcastle had. Credit to the staff and the players, but nobody could see them that turnaround and the points tally that they taken from then to the end of the season. It's phenomenal. So anybody, for me, going at that time was about money. Now, but you're still going to look at Newcastle. So say, for instance, if you're Lingard, right, and you're now looking at West Ham and Newcastle. Whereas before you'd say, I'm going to West Ham. Now you can look at a Newcastle, because you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. If they lose Declan Rice, Newcastle could be swapping places with West Ham now. Do you know what I mean? So now you can look at it as a player and look at it as a viable option now. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before the transfer deadline, when they were in the position they were, you're looking at it and thinking, right, if I go, I'm going for the money. I could well be in the Championship, right? But now it becomes a different ball game with them attracting players, right? Now all you've got to do, you've already got Kieran Trippier, who I think is an outstanding footballer, you know, and they've made a couple of really good signings at the moment. Or they've got a great spirit, a great work ethic. All they've got to do is sign 2 or 3 decent players, and then they're in amongst the mix to finish in the top 6. I don't think it's out of the question whatsoever.
Exciting times, brilliant. As always, Carlton, brilliant to see you, and thanks for your time.
No problem at all. Thanks, pal.